everyone's going to be excited about this because we've had a lot of criticism on our previous videos, backlash about how we should just be grateful and just focus on the gratitude of being adopted, and our birth parents didn't want us, and we should just be grateful that someone wanted us. And we heard you guys.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. My name is Famata Warfield.
My name is Hawa Zabel.
And welcome back to Adopt a Gal's podcast.
We're really excited for this topic that we have on hand today. And I think most of you are going to be very excited because a lot of you have been requesting us to focus more on this, which is the topic of gratitude. Being grateful for being adopted in our adoption story, being grateful for our adoptive parents for taking us in, and really focusing on the selfless aspect of adoption and the sacrifice that our adoptive parents had to go through to take in children that were not theirs and treat them like their own, essentially. So I say that everyone's going to be excited about this because we've had a lot of criticism on our previous videos about how backlash about how we should just be grateful and just focus on the gratitude of being adopted, and our birth parents didn't want us, and we should just be grateful that someone wanted us. And we heard you guys. At the end of the day, I think we wanted to focus on more than just the gratitude, and I think you guys were able to feel that from us. But today we want to take this time out to show the gratitude that we do have for our adoptive family. Because it's not easy adopting children. So
yeah, I mean, absolutely, because taking in kids that are not yours, especially children from overseas who have experienced a lot of trauma, and then they come into your own home and you have to figure out how to help them with that trauma, it cannot be easy. And at the same time, we want to reiterate and talk about 4 things. So many things can be true at once. Yes, we are grateful, but it's also okay to talk about the negatives in order to create a better learning situation and bridge the gap between the adoptee and the adoptive parents, and figure out what the better solution to make the process better. And so today's episode is just about being, hey, mom, dad, thank you so much for adopting us. Thank you for taking the time to really go ahead and bring us to the States and giving us a better life. And to be honest, earlier today, somebody had asked me on TikTok about my adoption story, and I was talking about it and I got emotional, and I was just mainly thinking about my mom. I say my mom, and I'm not saying that my dad wasn't involved, but my mom was just very deeply involved with me. And when it comes to the emotional stuff of dealing with things that I've been through and trying to acclimate to America, her and I were just like this together, and she was with me in figuring out a lot of that emotional stuff and helping me out. And I am truly so grateful for my family. I will always be grateful for them. And even though I don't have a relationship with them anymore, that does not mean I don't love them anymore. I love them deeply, very much. They will always have a place in my heart. And in the future, if things change and we are able to have a relationship, great. But as for now, I am still very protective of them. And even though I talk about certain things that they did wrong, I don't want people to, 1, chastise me, and 2, feel like they have to attack my parents. Please do not try to find my parents and attack them, because I will not be okay with that. And that is not okay, period. And because I love them and I care about them and I want the best for them. And I want the best for them no matter what the situation is right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. 2 things can be true at the same time, right? I was just processing all of our videos with my boyfriend, and I was just thinking, at the end of the day, the reason why we go so hard for this channel, and not only do we honor our truth, but we're not afraid to tell our truth and our story and hope that it helps people. But it makes me sad to think that every single person that I know that is adopted outside of myself and maybe one other person don't have a relationship with their adoptive family. And it's sad because, first of all, you have all these years of experience with this child that you adopted, and then for them to turn 18 and decide they no longer want to talk to you just because of situations or drama that happened, right? That could have been fixed, or there were solutions for them. And then also just on the facts that you invested a lot of money into adopting a child, raising up a child that's not yours. you
Hmm.
spend all this money and then it's kind of must be a slap in the face when you
Yeah.
end up not even having a relationship with this child. So I know it's a very painful
Hmm.
experience for parents who have adopted, right?
Hmm.
So we have empathy for you, what you guys experience, the sacrifice you go through, right? And even with my birth family, I am so appreciative of them because I
Hmm.
honestly have put them through a lot.
Yeah.
I have
Me
put
too.
them through
Me
a
too.
lot. And I wouldn't say I was a bad child, but I was
Hmm.
going through a lot and trying to figure out my identity, myself, and I was lashing out a lot, had a lot of anger issues, and
Same.
parents chose not to give up on me, right? Like they would with their biological children, they would never give up on my two sisters. So
Hmm.
they want to give me the same benefit of doubt that,
Yeah.
I am a good person at heart. I'm just going
Hmm.
through a hard time. And I think they've always led their love with me with that message that I have just had experiences in life that most children have not. And I need an extra special type of loving and support. And so to this day, I still have a relationship with my adoptive family,
Hmm.
and our relationship has formed and developed into something I think really beautiful that I cherish. Now, I can never have that maternal feeling with them, right? It's pretty much impossible for us to have that maternal type of
Yeah.
love. However,
Hmm.
we built our own type of love and sense of family and support where I feel comfortable calling up my mom, talking to her pretty much about anything. And I think she would feel the same way about me as well. And I hang out with my family on a
Hmm.
regular basis, still talk on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And even now, I feel like there's still that safe space to have conversations about hardships that we had through our adoption experience, where I could have done better, or my parents could have done better, or we go through phases where we reflect. We have a
Hmm.
lot of reflection with each other, and we
That's
give each other
amazing.
that, yeah, we give each other that space to reflect without judgment. And I
Hmm.
really love that about my parents. And I've never felt like a bad person overall. I never felt like a bad person, even with all the hardships that I brought my family and all the
Yep.
money I had to spend to send me to all these damn boarding schools. Still were very supportive and loving of me, and I am so
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful that you're able to have that, and I have that. I had that too. And when you're talking about your mom and how you have a relationship with them, I truly do wish that I still have a relationship with my mom, because
Mhm.
when we had a relationship, I could just call her and talk to her and be like, "Oh, I this happened today, and that happened today, and all of that stuff." And I think part of the reason why we created this channel, and you were talking about how you have a lot of friends who don't have a relationship with their adoptive family anymore. And we're trying to prevent that. And that's why we created
Right,
this bridge that gap so that doesn't happen, because it's a beautiful thing when a family is like, I want to take you in and make you my own and give you a good life, and then to continue that relationship forever. And it's just like I said earlier, I was talking about my adoption story, and I was just reflecting and how my mother, when she was in the process of adopting me and our country was cracking down on child trafficking, and they thought that's what adoption was. In some cases, depending on the orphanage, they were doing that. And
yeah, they
but
were
our families, it was different. That's not what they were doing. And so people were telling my mom to not go to Sierra Leone, and the police and the authorities in Sierra Leone were saying, if you come here, we're gonna arrest you and put you in jail. And an impoverished country versus United States jail, very, very, very different. And
mhm,
so she's just like, what? That's my daughter. That is somebody that I want to adopt. I want her to be a part of my life. And I just feel like God is calling me to do this. I'm going to do it anyway. And she took that risk and she went and fought for me so hard. And I'm so grateful for her. And I have such a deep love for her that she was willing to put me first in that regard, where she was selfless and was like, I'm coming to get you because you are my daughter and you're supposed to be here with me. And I just cannot believe that she took that risk with someone she's never met before. Like, she didn't
right,
really know me and I didn't really know her. And for
yeah,
her to be like, both of my mom and my dad to say, we want to do this. And one, adoption is very expensive. It's
very
so expensive. All the home
expensive.
studies, yeah, all the
Yeah.
home studies that you have to go through, the flights going back and forth from Sierra Leone to here is very, very expensive. And
And we're
the
talking
fact
about
that,
international adoption, but
yes,
even adopting
yeah,
locally is still very expensive.
very expensive. And for them to make that sacrifice and to say, we want her and we love her enough to do that is something that is something I will never get, forget. And I will be protective of them until the day I die. And even if we don't even have a relationship for the rest of my life, I will always talk about that in my adoption story. That's not something that will never, ever, ever go unnoticed. And even though, like I said before, if I talk about the bad stuff, it doesn't mean I don't love them anymore. I love them deeply, and I wish nothing but good for them.
Right.
Hmm.
So one thing I have always thought about is, why it's hard for us adoptees to
Hmm.
focus more on just the gratitude.
Hmm.
And, for me, I would love to hear your answer after, but I'm just thinking, what are the reasons why it could be potentially challenging, and it has been challenging in the past, to
Hmm.
just focus on gratitude is, in a way, it's like no one likes to feel like they're like a charity case.
Yeah.
And I think with adoption, especially when the adoption is from like church or missionary act, it's like you're almost like a charity case, right? Like poor you, like no one wanted you. And,
Hmm.
the best you could have is some random stranger all the way across the world
Hmm.
choosing to take you in. Yeah, it might sound selfish or, victim, like I'm trying to be a victim, but that's just the honest truth. It doesn't feel good to know that you're pretty much a charity case, and know that your birth parents didn't want you. So I think sometimes it can just be hard to just focus on the gratitude when it comes to adoptive parents. But one thing I'll say, even the people who do adopt out of
Hmm.
saviorism, right? Whether that be white saviorism or whatever kind of saviorism, because that is a reality, especially
Very
when it comes to
much.
adopting through church.
Hmm.
I still have gratitude for those people because
Yeah.
no one forced them by hand to adopt.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's goodness that stemmed from the root of the reason why they
Hmm.
wanted to adopt. That was the root, is they wanted to do good for the world, and they
Hmm.
wanted to do good for other people.
Hmm.
And of course, if you're seeing a child that's in Africa, for example, where we're adopted, starving, and they show all these programs and images of us like with flies running, with nose all snotty and whatnot, of course
Yeah.
you're gonna want to be like, I want to take that child out of poverty, so no one blames people that do
Yeah.
have saviorism complex and that want to save the whole world, and no one is blaming you guys at all whatsoever. I'm actually grateful that
Yeah.
you guys are able to pull together the fun, the community, the
Yeah.
strength to be able to do that. Like, I have so much gratitude for that,
And respect. And
and
that reminds
respect.
me of my mom. She was telling me a story when she was younger, and she used to see those, those commercials of children starving over in Africa. And she used to she used to like save food to figure out how to like send it. To figure out
Aww.
how to send it. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's always had such a beautiful heart and a
Yeah.
heart for other people and helping people. And I'm just like, that is so like truly her. And
Yeah.
to hear that story, I'm like, well, it continued throughout your life where, and now she still does stuff like that where she works with an organization where they basically go into impoverished countries to help them learn how to be sustainable, help kids like us, figure out how to move through life in a way, and when it comes to financial and starting businesses and other things like that that makes children more sustainable. And she got to that because she felt like adoption isn't always the answer, and she felt like it's best to have the children live in their own space, in their own country, and figuring out how to give them the tools to be sustainable in that. And while doing that, they're also learning how to make their country better. So she does that. And so I think she's just always
Like, it's
been those
almost like
empowerment. Yeah.
empowerment versus like reliance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With adoption, if you're adopting a child internationally because you want the child to be, you know, to have a better opportunity at life, I
Hmm.
can see how, it might be better in the long run for them,
Yeah.
for someone to invest in a program that's more focused on empowerment versus just plain out adopting. Because to
Hmm.
be honest with you, most people are not equipped to adopt a child, especially a child from a third world country. They have
No.
some trauma that you have
Hmm.
never experienced before or know of. So, and that's why one person posted on our video and she was like, I love the videos you guys are creating
Hmm.
because all of these topics that you're speaking on, I had to
Hmm.
ponder if I'm
Mhm.
really ready to adopt, if I'm ready, and I decided not to go with adoption because I knew I wasn't ready to go through
Yeah.
therapy myself, not
Yeah.
nonetheless like take another person through therapy and go through that whole journey. So
Yeah.
it's a really serious situation that you have to think about. Most people are not equipped for it. I don't even know if I would be equipped for it. But I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
so
I
that's
mean,
why I'm grateful
and
for people who take on that,
that,
challenge,
yeah,
I
that
guess,
that
in a
it,
way.
it's yeah, it's tough, and it's them like going out of their comfort zone, and like your life after you go out of that comfort zone, like your life is never the same after that. And especially children like us who have experienced PTSD and trauma in Sierra Leone, and then being in their household, like they've never really had a child who's dealt with hard things. They don't know what to do, so it's like this whole new environment, and they're trying to like figure it out and do the best that they can. And one thing I can say about our parents is that they were doing the best that they can. They really were. They tried their best, and they put their all into what they thought was right. Even though there was ups and downs, and some of it was not necessarily the best idea, but it didn't come from a place of evil. That's not where it came from. It came from them just trying to give us the tools that they thought we needed. So for them to like get out of their comfort zone, which is so hard for people to do that, it's I'm so grateful for that. And I admire that for them to take that step. And it's just like, wow, like, thank you for doing that. Thank you for dealing with me and my emotional issues where I was angry at times because I just didn't know what I was feeling. And I would just be quiet. And sometimes it felt like I was just, up and down sideways and trying to figure out, my life and my new environment and trying to fit in. And yeah, it's just it's a beautiful journey that has its good ups and downs and bad too. But
Yeah,
overall,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's been for me anyways, it's been an amazing experience. I'm
Hmm.
grateful for my adoptive family. I'm grateful to my birth family for having the
As birth
strength
family
to
for.
be able to even like
Hmm.
think about giving me the opportunity at a better life, right? Because it must be so scary and really painful to to give away, to trust a
Hmm.
stranger with your child. That's like,
Yeah.
I think that would be a
And
challenge
yeah,
for any parent, and just being able to have faith that it would all work out. And I think it's worked out, at least for me, in my favor. And it's all been such a learning experience. And I'm just grateful that my adoptive family never really gave up on me.
yeah.
Um, I mean,
And
they were not necessarily easy on me. They had all the consequences. They had a whole book of consequences, like, but at the same time, they kept on trying. I would,
yeah,
they kept on always getting up and trying and trying and trying, and they knew that
yeah,
they didn't know everything. So
yeah,
they were always reaching out and to finding different resources to be able to create the best support system for me. So definitely
yeah.
appreciate them for that.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's just everything that they just did and putting themselves out there was so brave and courageous. And when it comes to my birth family, I also am very, very grateful for them as well. And just basically giving up their kid, like they don't know if they're gonna ever see their children. And
Right.
I remember going back when I was 14, and my mother, as soon as she saw me, she just started sobbing. And I just started sobbing with her because she hasn't seen me since I was like 8 years old. And now I'm
Right.
14. I'm like this young adult, coming to her, and she's missed out on so much of my life. And I'm sure with your family too, they've missed out on so much. Like they don't really know who you are anymore. And
Yeah.
so it's like they have to figure out how to learn and to know who you are. And then for us, we forgot the language, our birth language. And it's like, and then they want to communicate with us. It's like, but they can't communicate with us because we don't have that language anymore. So you have to have like this interpreter who is standing between you two and trying to relay the message. And it's just like, I want to be able to tell you that I want to share my new life with you and the good things that I've experienced and have this connection and share this new relationship and this new me. And I want to say thank you for being courageous and brave to say, but I want to give you a better life. I want you to do better and get out of this. And it's just so, I just cannot imagine. I cannot imagine being a mother and a father who has to give up their children to give
Yeah.
them a better life. I just cannot imagine that emotion. And that's something I don't even think I can ever be able to do. And every now and then my husband is like, let's get another dog so we can like mate them and like mate them and they have puppies. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to give up those puppies. I can't do that. I can't give them up. No. and like, and it goes back to that, my being adopted and being given up. Cause I'm like, I know what that feels like. And I just can't do that. But when it comes to, human wise and children in that aspect, I just cannot imagine. I can't imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much it, you guys. We're gonna
Yeah.
wrap it up. But with all the videos that y'all love to comment on the triggering ones. I'll just say that y'all
Yeah.
love the controversial videos, so we have to give a little bit of that to you. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, we are very grateful. We're both, again, we've been raised up to become very classy, beautiful women.
Hmm.
We're smart, intelligent, and that's a
All
huge
because of our
part
adopted parents.
because of our adoptive parents. So we
Mhm.
have but gratitude for where we are today. God knows where we would be in Africa, maybe popping out 13 children with one arm, one
Not
leg.
13 children.
We don't even know, right? I'm just saying, like, barely able to like afford to feed our children, our family, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So there's so much gratefulness that I have in my heart. I think Emily, at the end of the day, Famata has that as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of turmoil
Hmm.
with the relationship with her adoptive family, but at the end of the day, we're able to
Hmm.
take apart the good and the bad and
Yeah.
say that both things are standing
Right.
at the same time and strong. But gratitude is one thing that you can never say that we don't have, right?
I feel like I have to add this in here. Like,
Okay.
I know, like, being adopted and into a family that's not necessarily like your birth family, or isn't there, like, for me, I've experienced moments where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm acting like my mother right now. My mother, like, there's times where I'm like,
Oh
I do
yeah, that
certain
happens all
movements,
the
like
time.
I do,
Yeah,
right? I do
that
certain
happens
movements and
all the
I'm like,
time.
my mother does that. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm becoming my mother, like, in a
I do
positive
that.
way, of course, and negative, because we do pick up good and bad traits from our parents. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wow. And the way I tilt my head at times, where I like twirl my hair. My mom used to like twirl her hair when she's just sitting and just relaxing. I'm like, mother does this. I don't know about you. I don't know if you have like little quirks
No,
like that.
I do that. Like when I nod my head a lot. Like
Yeah.
my mom, she does that when people are talking to her. She nods. It's like little nods, and I'm like, why do I keep nodding? I don't know why. Sometimes I don't even agree with people, but I just be nodding. So yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah.
I have,
Yeah.
definitely some characteristics have been passed on to me from
Yeah.
my adopted family, both my mom and my dad. So
Yeah.
it's
And
and even
yeah.
just the way that I talk, I think both my
Hmm.
parents are lawyers. So a lot of times when I'm speaking to people or they ask me questions, like sometimes my answers just sound like I could be a lawyer in the making.
Yeah, my
So
Lori, the lawyer comes out in you.
yes, definitely
Yeah.
does. Absolutely.
Also, before we go, I feel like we also have to talk about our fathers, because I feel like we didn't talk about them enough. And I feel like this video can be a little longer because it's more gratitude, and I feel like it's really necessary to give as much as we can. When it comes to our fathers, even though a lot, they weren't necessarily involved in the emotional stuff, in which, a lot of the time, actually, my father was, but not as involved as my mother. And I have to give gratitude to my father as well, because at the end of the day, he was the one working to provide the money for me to have a better life and for me to be in sports. He was always there for me when it came to sports. Oh my gosh. He was my biggest cheerleader in sports. Like, if I wanted to do any sport, he's like, okay, which one do you want to do? We can do it. Like, I could do like 10 sports. And that man was cheering for me, like in track and soccer. He was my biggest
Oh,
fan. And I love him. I love him. Honestly, I love him so much. He's such a sweet, funny man. And I'm
your
just
dad
so,
was so funny. I remember when I used to visit, I used to be like, your dad is so cool. Like he like teases all
yeah,
the kids. He tells all these like funny
yeah,
jokes and stuff like that.
yeah.
And your dad is great.
He is. He was so great. And he was always just lighthearted to be around. And when he would talk to me about certain things, he would always create like these analogies that would just like that I would just understand. And it kind of like made, it decreases everything, where I felt a little more comfortable and not as mad about certain things. And I just appreciate all those little things. And there's so much more. I could go on all day about all the good things that our parents did for us. And I just want to add an extra emphasis on our fathers as well.
Absolutely. And I can say
Yeah.
the same thing about my dad. My dad has been like the rock of the family.
Yeah.
He's very stable. And, same thing with sports. He's always like my number one fan. And even with my hair, like he was the one doing my hair. And
The little ponytail you're talking about.
my little ponytail that was like this small. And yeah, he's just always been the rock to the family. And
Yeah.
I think my mom was kind of like the quote unquote bad cop. He was always a good cop.
My mom was like that too.
He never wanted to like disappoint me, so he would like
Yeah.
spoil me and all that good stuff. So I think it created a good balance.
Yeah.
And you know, my mom, she's just like she's just so deep into it. The consequences, the good, the whole roller coaster experience. She's into it. So,
Yeah.
and my dad was just like, you know, he rarely said no to me. So I was very
Yeah.
spoiled. You know, I got that part from my dad, and he was just very loving, both my parents, but my dad was, you know, very, very loving, very soft and affectionate. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's
All
just
right.
that's it today. And of course, you know, in future videos, we will add more things that we were grateful for, because it's just, there's so
Mhm.
much to be grateful for. And we really hope you enjoy this episode. And we really hope you go ahead and write, if you're an adoptee, write down the good things that your family has done for you. And even though you no longer have a relationship, just talk about the good things, because there's good and bad in everything. And we appreciate you guys so much for once again tuning in and being in this journey with us. We love you. We care about you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, let people know that we are doing this and we are out here spreading the good message. Till next time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do
Yeah.
all that good stuff. Thank you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.